Ephesians chapter 1, and there's a grand vision to end with. Let me read something what I spoke of yesterday and then conclude the chapter. It says, God placed all things under his feet and appointed him to be head over everything for the church, which is his body, the fullness of him who fills everything in every way. So during this letter, this chapter, what Paul has done is he's rehearsed his understanding of our salvation, right from God choosing us to Christ redeeming us by his blood, and the Spirit then being the guarantee in our lives of that inheritance that we have. And then he started praying for us in a way that we should be praying for each other and for ourselves, speaking of how great this salvation is, and that we should long to know it more. It should grip us. We should be praying that our understanding of it will grow. And there are particular things that he highlighted there in the end of chapter 1, where he speaks about praying that we may know the hope to which he has called us, the riches of his glorious inheritance in the saints, and his incomparably great power for us who believe. And it's that phrase that sets off this great exalted prose that he has now, speaking about Christ seated at God's right hand, above all power and all authority. And everything is under his feet, even death itself. And he's exercising this power for the church, because the church, as he says here, is his body. And that introduces this idea of how we are organically linked to him. We're not just distant. We're not disconnected. We are, in fact, organically linked to him. And therefore, he's going to do everything to strengthen that, because we are his body. And there's a kind of afterthought to the way he describes this, because he speaks about the body, the fullness of him who fills everything in every way. Now, if you read the commentaries, you'll see that people struggle to understand exactly what that could mean or how it could be expressed. So if you have a struggle to understand it, then you're in good company. In Colossians, he speaks about the fact that all the fullness of the deity lives in bodily form, of course, in Jesus. That's a breathtaking statement, to think that everything that God is there present in Jesus. And he then says in Colossians, we've received fullness in him. So all of that God's blessing, not that we are God or any sense like that, but all of God's blessing that comes through Christ is poured into us. We receive fullness in him. So here he's speaking about the church. And the church, not just being filled with Christ, but in some way the church expresses that fullness of Christ in what it is. And he's the one who fills everything, he says, the one who fills the universe. He's great beyond our imagining. But he expresses himself, his fullness, through the church, through his own people. That's you and me. Don't think of institutions or buildings. Think of us who follow him. And he says, well, in some way, that fullness of what Christ is expressed in us because we are his body. Now maybe your head's spinning, and as I said, you're in good company. You think, well, what does that mean? Well, I can only suggest that you write the verse down, stick it on a post-it note, put it somewhere prominent, and look at it every so often and pray, well, what does that mean? How can that be a blessing to me? Well, it is a huge blessing, actually. Maybe Paul intended it to be a challenge to you. This great passage rolled into one, showing how God saves and acts towards us, brings salvation in Christ. And then at the end of it, he says, well, just need to realize, actually, this is beyond our comprehension to a certain degree. But it does actually demonstrate his commitment to us. That we are his body, that we belong to him, and we display his glory in a way that nothing else does. And that means he's not going to let you fail. He's not going to turn you down. His commitment to you is absolute. Yes, there will be mistakes along the way. You will stumble and fall and be faithless at times, struggle in your understanding of him and your following him. Yes, you will. But his commitment to you is absolute. You are his body. And you are somebody who's going to display the fullness of Christ. And therefore that challenges us to think about, well, what should my commitment to be like him to be? It's a little while before Paul, writing this letter, is going to get to specific application and say, well, this is how you should live. That's way down the track in chapter 4. But actually, it does beg the question, doesn't it? If that's his commitment to you, what is your commitment to him like? There is a consequence. If this is what he's done, how are you going to live for him? That's, of course, the big challenge of all Christian doctrine. This is what God has done. How are you going to live in response? Well, we'll begin chapter 2 tomorrow, which takes us further into the realm of thinking about, well, what we once were and how amazing it is that this is his commitment to us when this is what we were like. Well, we'll see that tomorrow.